Diane Lee from Teach Pre-K, and I wanted to address something today that I've just kind of noticed off and on during my early childhood career and going to different conferences, reading a lot of blogs, watching YouTube videos, following different groups on Facebook and different people on Instagram. Um, I feel like we're going away from this a little bit, which is great. But when I first started teaching about 15 years ago, there were kind of two tracks of early childhood. There was the developmental track and the academic track. And each one thought they had it figured out. Each one thought that theirs was the way to do it. Um, my kids, when I lived in Texas, they went to a developmental preschool run by a Methodist church. It was in Dallas called Ridgewood Park. I don't know if it's still there, but such a great experience there. And it was definitely a developmental play based preschool. Now, I didn't know anything about preschools at the time. I just sent my daughter to the same preschool that my best friend sent her son, who was a year older. So that's the only criteria I had. She trusted it. I trusted her. I didn't do a lot of touring. I did do a little looking into some ideas. Montessori was one I thought of, and I wasn't really crazy about it. So that is actually, I think I did tour a couple of Montessori schools, but I really liked this little school that my kids went to. But then at the beginning, like 2 months into my youngest daughter's three-year preschool, we moved. And we moved to Utah. And I wanted my old preschool because I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I was chairman of the board at the preschool, and I learned a lot about preschool. My kids are 3 years apart, so, and it started at 6 months. It had like a Mother's Day out, almost daycare situation, but it was only for a few hours. So I had been there and I had learned a lot, and I really loved the teachers. I really loved the program, but I moved here and I was 2 months into the school year. So all the developmental preschools that I looked up were full. And again, I went through a friend. My neighbor said, "Hey, my kids go to this preschool." And I ended up, there was a spot open for my youngest, and I ended up sending her there. And it was not a developmental preschool, it was an academic preschool. Worked out beautifully because turns out my youngest daughter was almost genius level and had taught herself how to read just by listening to me help her sister read. And she was 3 years old, and she was reading and doing math and writing words. And um, she's still that way. She's really, really highly intelligent. But so the academic preschool was actually a perfect fit for her. She would have done great in the developmental preschool, but she learned to read on a whole different level than her just passively learning and teaching herself, because I did not believe in teaching 3-year-olds to read. So it was really interesting when I came into teaching preschool. I had had a great experience with one child with developmental preschool, and she would not have done as well with the academics. She would have done okay. It would have kind of been the same for both kids. She would have done fine. She would have done fine, but she definitely thrived in developmental preschool, where my other one definitely thrived in the academic preschool. So you could say then it depends on the child, but the problem there is people don't always know what their child is going to be like. Does that make sense? sometimes they see it and they know, like I always knew my little one was an observer. She learned things quickly, but I didn't know if that was because she was a second child or, I'm not going to call her gifted because I think that's a weird label, but she definitely had something other kids didn't have. And I knew that, but I didn't necessarily know what kind of preschool program would work better. The internet wasn't as developed as it is now, so there wasn't a lot of research online that I could have gone to like there is today. So I think that's definitely changed things a lot. There's been a lot more advances in the study of early childhood education by a lot of amazing schools like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, the Ivies, as well as probably all of the local colleges do a really, really good job. I know the university that we have here has a tremendous early childhood program. And there is another university that's about 45 minutes away that also has an outstanding early childhood program. So one thing that was interesting to me when I first came into the field was our school was set up in a way where we just had a whole lot of freedom. We had a curriculum that was fairly academic, not getting into sight words or anything, but definitely there was a focus on letters and letter sounds and a lot of math academics that went along with each unit of study. And then there was a particular way that we had to teach according to the teacher's manual, with repeating the same story day after day after day and focusing on different things. And it was studied by a lot of people with PhDs and a lot of letters after their names, and high quality, definitely. A great curriculum. But when I tried to follow the curriculum exactly, I noticed that some things were too challenging for a lot of the kids. Some things were too boring. The kids would go, again, when it would be the same story that I was supposed to read 3 days in a row, according to my curriculum. We would stay on theme for 3 weeks, and I just noticed the kids would become disinterested in the theme, and they would be ready to move on. And frankly, I would be ready to move on. So over time, I really started to question, what is the best for kids? What is the right way? What is the wrong way? Which then I thought, that's not the way to look at it. It's like, how can I best serve the most kids? Some kids, like my youngest, are going to do incredibly well in a full academic-based preschool. My oldest is going to do incredibly well in more of the free play, free flow, set your own pace. There's a lot of curriculums where it seems like units of study going for 3 weeks is just the way to go. And I'm sure there's a ton of research to back that up. But in my practical experience, I have found that that is just too long for me as a teacher and for the kids to stay on one theme. That's my feeling. I'm not saying this is how it should be. I'm just saying that is my feeling. I took the themes that we had in our curriculum, and I think there was like 8 or 9 themes, maybe 10. Wasn't enough to cover the whole year, which was super frustrating for me. And like I said, the kids would get bored. I needed to supplement a lot. I needed to add other themes. I needed to expand on the kinds of center activities that they expected us to do, because it just wasn't enough for the kids. Like I said, some things were too challenging for some, not as challenging for others. It did have, do this with your 3/4s, do this with your 4/5s. So it was helpful that way, but I knew that I had to take this great curriculum that we had that was so research based and standards based. And I had to expand on it, and I had to create something better and use it as a framework. And that's what I did. I mean, we can keep our accreditation because we do still follow that curriculum. We do still follow the standards in the teacher's manuals. We have just stretched it and added more literature, added more math, added more literacy activities, added more and different dramatic play ideas, sensory ideas, block table ideas, more manipulatives, different ways of doing similar activities that frankly were a lot more engaging for the kids. So I credit this curriculum greatly for being developmental and developmentally appropriate and academic and an excellent framework. And I think that combining the academic and the developmental together, giving free choice where appropriate and developmentally appropriate free choice is super important, but also having structured teacher-led centers as well. I'm not talking worksheets. I rarely have anything on paper that they take home that's like a little practice paper. I rarely do that. There's usually, if there is a paper, there's a fine motor element to it, or it's interactive, like using daubers and finding letters, things like that. So it's interesting. Parents, however, I have found, still want to know if the program is academic, and they think academic is best because that's going to get their child, this big head start, and not realizing that the developmental does the exact same thing, and that not all kids are developmentally ready to learn how to read and decode and get into, kindergarten level phonics. I mix simple phonics and decoding in at appropriate times of the year when it's developmentally appropriate for a large percentage of my class. And, that comes from a lot of trial and error and, just experience and things like that. So I really feel deep in my heart that combining the free choice developmental preschool approach with academics, the learning through play can be done with academics if you make the academic activities playful. Does that make sense? So I feel that a focus should be always on learning through play. Learning through play is how it's done for 3 to 5 year olds. That's their language. That's how they learn. There's mountains of research saying that. You can learn rhyme through play. You can learn letters through play. You can learn math through play. You can learn, social emotional things through play. You like everything, executive function, self-regulation, science, physics, everything. You can lay those foundations with play-based activities. That's not all free play. That can be teacher-guided play with an academic goal and focus. So if you look at any of my videos where I'm going through what I do for centers, for math, and literacy and science and art. There is, for the academic subjects, they are playful centers. There is play. And where might be a little bit more dry, like it's counting, I make it engaging. I make it playful. I find ways to make it a game because I know they're going to get so much more out of it if I do that. So I guess what I'm saying here is when I started and I didn't know which direction to go, and I had the freedom from my wonderful principal who trusted me and believed me when I said, I love this curriculum. It's fantastic, but it isn't enough. This is what I'm thinking of doing, is using it as my framework along with my state core standards, but making all the academic activities more playful, more varied, because I don't want the kids to get bored, bringing in so much more literature that can increase their vocabularies so much more than if I just read the same story over and over. Maybe it's the same story in different ways. Like I'm thinking the gingerbread man. I read so many versions of the gingerbread man. I think I read 10 different versions in that week. Wow, how many ways are there to tell the same story, right? And then finding ways to bring literature into life by making it into a play, doing a puppet show, doing little stick figures, whatever we do. I feel like finding fun, exploring, hands-on, engaging, playful academic activities is possible. Making those activities developmentally appropriate is possible. So if you're going through a struggle where parents are wanting academic or administrators are wanting academic, and you know in your heart of hearts that your preschoolers are going to learn more through play, find a way to make those academic centers and activities playful. I think I did a video a couple weeks ago where I did ABC, and if they saw a ghost, would sing the alphabet song, they'd say boo. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And it was again, I want to do it again. We were just doing the alphabet. But I made doing the alphabet playful. So they were seeing those letters on those cards, saying those letters as they saw them, and they had to concentrate because the ghost would come up and they would say boo. I've since made a new one that I think I'm going to make into a lead magnet. It's letters and then there's a thundercloud and you say boom. But I know I want my kids to learn the letters. Their parents want them to learn the letters. They are going to school. But I don't want to just drill letters. I got to find really creative, fun, playful ways. I want my kids to identify numbers. So I make little number cards and I hide things under them, and they have to try to guess where it is, but they can't touch up. They have to say what the number is. If they don't know the number, they point to it. I tell them they are learning the number. You see that? But all they care about is finding the gingerbread man or finding the mouse or finding whatever I've hidden under these little numbers. And it's a game, but they are learning so much because they are having a fun time. So, and we do activities like that over and over and over. So I just want you to know that the purely developmental learning through play, awesome. The academic is great, but kids learn through play. So if you're going to go academic, throw in learning through play. If you are in a program that's forcing you to do things that you don't fully embrace, find a way to make it playful and more developmentally appropriate. And maybe you can convince your administration by the results you're getting that this is a better way to do it. Does that make sense? Because if you're not having kids learn through play, it's just not going to happen as well, and it's just not going to stick. It's just not going to stick as well. Kids need to be an active part of their learning, and I feel like this goes on through the rest of our lives. We learn best by doing, not by being lectured at, right? So just keep that in mind. And like I said, no way is the best way. My way isn't the best way. I personally feel that it is going to give more kids what they need, than just going straight developmental or straight academic. I'm going to hit the kids like my youngest daughter and like my oldest daughter, and therefore I'm going to challenge more kids, and I'm going to keep it as playful and fun for the kids who are going to thrive in that environment too. So if you have any questions, I know this video might be kind of weird. I hope it's not difficult to follow, but I guess my whole point is don't ever feel locked in a box. Look at the whole picture and look at what's not working and find a way to put play into everything you do. And I promise you, your administrators and your directors are going to love what you're doing. And when you evaluate your children, hopefully you're only doing that 2 or 3 times a year, you will see the results of those efforts that you made making things playful. I promise you. And for ideas, please watch my videos on what I do for the different themes. That'll be really helpful. I think Pocket Full of Preschool does things similarly. That's definitely developmental and academic at the same time. I don't know if Play to Learn. I know she's got a great blog and a great Instagram presence. I think she might be on YouTube too. But these are some great teachers who are making it work. Vanessa Levin, Pre-K Pages, I believe, does a great job. Pre-Kinders does a great job. So I'm not alone in this. This is definitely where I see things going. I feel like early childhood is abandoning that you got to go one way or another and finding ways to do both. But I know that some schools are firmly rooted in one way and some are firmly rooted in another way, and just try to get as creative as you can. And also, if this is another big thing, we were assessing our kids 1,000,000 times a year, and it was driving me nuts because I feel like the whole assessment process was super unnatural. So we have taken it down to beginning, middle, and end of the year. That's it. So that has made a huge difference in teacher stress, in kid stress. I feel like it's made our results and our data more accurate because we've allowed the kids to build on prior knowledge. I read an article about a school that would evaluate their kids on, rhyming and sight words every single week. And to me, that's just like, hi, how can we make our children more full of anxiety? So you might want to talk to your administrators about that and do your own research on that. That's, again, just my opinion. But so for what it's worth, I hope this has been a helpful video for a lot of you who might just be starting out and some of you who might be in a frustrating spot right now. If you have any questions or comments Or if you want to meet with me on Zoom or anything, just leave a comment below. Thanks.